She was building her cabin one log at a time, never knowing love would find her there. The night the storm came, it didn't just take the roof off my cabin, it took the peace I'd been pretending I had. I remember the sound before the wind, that deep, bone-creaking groan of timber giving way. I was half awake, half dreaming of the war, when the roof started to peel like the lid off a tin. Rain came in sideways, hissing through every crack. I grabbed the lantern, and its light swung wild. Catching the rifle leaned against the wall, the Bible on the table, and the framed sketch of a woman I once loved enough to bury. By dawn, the storm had left my land looking like a drunk man's memory. Mud, broken fences, and a sky torn open with pale streaks of morning. I stepped outside barefoot, the ground cold and heavy, and watched the smoke from my chimney twist like a lost soul. My cabin stood half ruined but still standing, like me. It was then I saw her. A figure walking down the ridge road, soaked through, dress torn, carrying a bundle wrapped in a ragged shawl. She didn't stumble or call out. She just kept walking until she was standing in front of my gate. The bundle moved. It was a child, or maybe two. I couldn't tell. "Sir," she said, her voice raw, "we just need a place till morning." The sky cracked again with a late growl of thunder, like the storm wasn't done arguing with God. I should have said no, should have sent her on to the town 10 miles east. But there was something about the way she held those children, tight as if the world itself meant to snatch them away. "Name?" I asked. "Mara." She didn't offer more, and I didn't ask. I opened the door. The warmth from the dying fire spilled out, catching the mud on her boots, the cut on her lip, the fear in her eyes that she thought she'd hidden. By nightfall, the wind had gone, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I'd lived 3 winters alone since the war, and I thought solitude had made me steady. Turns out it had just made me hollow. When I looked at her, at them, I felt the hollow fill with something dangerous. Hope. Outside, the wind sighed through the trees like it was remembering every name carved into a grave marker. Inside, her children slept by the fire, and I sat watching the flame's reflection in the rifle barrel, knowing life had just shifted its weight. Nothing would ever be the same again. Morning came slow, wrapped in fog that clung to the valley like regret. I woke to the sound of wood splitting, not mine, hers. Mara was outside with my axe, swinging in clean, determined arcs. The hem of her dress was damp with dew, her hair unbound, and the light off the mist made her look like a ghost building herself a body again. "Didn't think you'd take to chores so early," I said. Stepping onto the porch, she didn't look up. "Didn't think you'd sleep so heavy," she shot back. There was grit in her voice, the kind that comes from too many nights fighting off the cold, or worse, memories. I poured 2 tin cups of coffee, and when she came to take hers, I saw the bruises under her sleeve. "They weren't old. Those men," I said quietly. "The ones who hurt you. They still lookin'?" Her jaw tightened. "They're looking for someone who doesn't exist anymore." The way she said it made me believe her, and fear her a little too. We spent that day repairing what the storm had wrecked. She cut logs to my measure. I notched and fitted them one by one. Her girls, little things with eyes too old for their faces, stacked kindling and fetched nails like they'd been born knowing labor was love. By noon, the sun broke through. Steam rose from the wet wood, the smell of pine sap and smoke curling around us. That's when I saw them. 3 riders cresting the far ridge. Black coats, 1 horse limping. Even from that distance, I knew the type. Lawmen or liars, it's hard to tell them apart till they start talking. Mara froze, her hand tightening around the hammer. "Friends of yours?" I asked. "Not anymore." I didn't push. Sometimes words are like dry twigs, too many, and something catches fire you can't control. The riders stopped at the edge of my property. One of them dismounted, took off his hat and called out, "Evening, sir. We're looking for a woman and 2 children. Might have come this way." I stepped forward, my rifle slung low but not idle. "Ain't seen anyone," I said. He smiled like a man who'd heard that line 100 times and never once believed it. "Storm tore up the road last night," he said. "Tracks led this way." Behind me, Mara's breath caught. Soft, but enough to make my pulse kick. "You're welcome to look around," I lied. "But it's just me out here." He studied me for a long beat, then nodded slow. "Appreciate the hospitality. Name's Deputy Rusk. We'll be in town if you recall any travelers." As they turned their horses, Mara whispered, "They're not law." I didn't need convincing. I'd seen too many men wear justice like a borrowed coat, just long enough to hide what they were really after. That night, the fire burned low. Mara sat stitching a tear in her daughter's dress. I oiled the rifle. The silence between us was heavy, full of things we weren't ready to say. "Why'd you let us stay?" she asked finally. I stared at the flame. Because the storm wasn't the worst thing knocking at my door. The next morning broke red. Not sunrise red, warning red. The kind of sky that makes old men check their locks and farmers bring stock in early. I felt it in my gut before I saw the boot prints near the barn. Too many for just me, Mara, and the girls. I knelt down, traced one with my finger. Smooth sole, steel heel. Military or bounty men. I'd worn boots like that once. Inside, Mara was packing. Bread, salt, matches, all into a sack that looked too small for the fear driving her hands. "They were here," I said. She didn't stop. "Then we can't be." "Running won't change it," I told her, though my own blood knew better. She met my eyes. "You think you can shoot the kind of men who don't need to reload?" That's when I saw it, how deep the fear ran. Not for herself, but for those girls. And something else behind it, guilt. The kind that sticks, no matter how far you ride. I poured coffee and sat by the fire, letting her decide whether to trust me. The girls played with the cat in the corner, whispering like every sound was a secret. Finally, she sat down across from me. "They're not after me because I stole something," she said. "They're after me because I saw something." "What did you see?" "A marshal. Shot in the back. Badge still pinned on." I set my cup down. "You sure?" "I buried him myself." The room went quiet but for the tick of the cooling stove. My thoughts spun like spurs on a bad trail. I'd fought beside marshals once before whiskey and guilt taught me silence was easier than confession. She went on, voice trembling now. "They said I was the one pulled the trigger. They killed my husband when he tried to speak for me. Took everything, so I ran. Been running ever since." I looked toward the door, where the sky beyond the windows was bruising into evening. "And you thought the edge of the world was far enough." "I thought a cabin on a hill no one cared about might be." I didn't tell her she was wrong. The way the wind hissed through the cracks said it for me. Before night fully settled, I went out to check the fences. Found a scrap of cloth snagged on the barbed wire. Black wool, same as Rusk's coat. They were circling, waiting. When I came back in, she was sitting by the fire, her daughters asleep against her shoulders. Her eyes found mine in the dim light. "You're not what you seem," she said softly. "The way you hold that gun, it's memory, not habit." I could have lied, should have, but the truth has its own kind of mercy. "Used to be law," I said, "till the law broke more than it fixed." Her gaze didn't flinch. "Then maybe we both been hunted by the same ghost." The window pane rattled. Hoofbeats in the distance. 3, maybe 4 riders. "Get the girls inside," I said, reaching for the lamp and snuffing it out. The dark came down fast. "Eli," she whispered, "if they find us, they won't." But even as I said it, my hand trembled. The kind of tremble that comes when fate finally knocks, and this time it knows your name. Night has a sound when death is near. It's not quiet, just full of things holding their breath. The wind through the pines, the click of my rifle bolt sliding home, the faint whimper of a child dreaming of something better than this world. I stood by the window, watching lanterns move between the trees. 3 men, maybe 4. One carried a torch, its flame jerking in the wind like a tongue tasting fear. Mara whispered behind me, "We can slip out the back." "No," I said. "They're too close. You and the girls go down the cellar. Don't make a sound till I come." Her eyes shone with something fiercer than fear. Faith, or maybe defiance. She nodded, kissed each girl on the forehead and led them to the trapdoor. The last thing I saw before she disappeared below was her hand on the beam, steady, unshaken. I blew out the last lamp and waited. The first knock came like thunder wrapped in knuckles. "Kane!" A voice called through the door. "Rusk. Got word you're harboring a fugitive. Law says that makes you one too." I said nothing. Silence is a weapon if you let it sharpen. Another voice, rougher. "We can smoke 'em out." That's when I spoke. "This land's mine," I said. "You step through that door, you don't leave the same." The torchlight flared, shadows twisting across the walls. Then footsteps, crunching closer. The gunfire started sudden and wild. Bullets tore splinters off the doorframe, whined past my ear. I dropped behind the table, returned fire once, twice. Someone screamed, a sound too raw to fake. When the echo faded, I heard only the wind again. Then the crunch of boots. One man left. He called out, "You think she's worth dying for, Kane?" The name hit me like a lash. Not because he said it, but because he knew it. "I know what you done in Abilene," he said. "Your badge didn't die there, just your nerve." My breath caught. Abilene. The town I'd left after the fire, after I failed to save the prisoners locked in the jail I was supposed to guard. My sin had traveled farther than I thought. I stood slow, rifle leveled. "You know my past," I said. "But not the man who came out of it." He laughed low. "That woman's blood ain't worth your redemption." The shot came before I thought. One crack, then silence. The torch fell, hissing into the mud. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I smelled smoke, the dry, biting kind that crawls fast. The torch had caught the porch beam. "Mara!" I shouted, ripping open the cellar door. She emerged, clutching the girls, eyes wide as the flames climbed. We ran into the rain, coughing, half blind. Behind us, the cabin burned, my past and hers turning to ash in the same fire. At the tree line, she turned, trembling. "They'll come again." "Let 'em," I said, pulling the last bullet from my belt. "This time I won't be the one running." The fire roared, painting the night in gold and ruin. She took my hand, and for the first time I didn't pull away. Sometimes you build a home to keep the world out. Sometimes the fire makes room for something truer. By dawn, the cabin was nothing but a black skeleton of beams and smoke. The girls slept wrapped in Mara's shawl beneath the lone pine that hadn't burned. I sat a few feet away, rifle across my knees, waiting for the sound of hoofbeats that didn't come. The world felt rinsed clean by the rain, but under that calm, danger was just sleeping. I knew it. So did she. Mara stirred beside the ashes, brushing soot from her hands. "You could have left us," she said quietly. "Would have been easier." "Maybe," I said, "but easy's never clean." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that's half pain, half gratitude. "When my husband died, I thought love died with him. I never thought it could change shape, find me again, out here of all places." I looked at her, really looked. The bruises, the dirt, the firelight still dancing in her hair. She was a woman reforged, like iron that had been melted down and made stronger. We spent the morning rebuilding, not a cabin, just a small lean-to to keep the girls dry. No words passed for a long time. Only the scrape of wood, the creak of rope, the steady rhythm of two people too tired to pretend anymore. At noon, the horizon shimmered. 2 riders, not Rusk. These men rode cleaner, government saddles, silver badge glinting. Lawmen for real this time. I stood, shielding my eyes. "Eli Kane," one called. "We're here on behalf of Marshal Hodge, heard there was trouble." I nodded slowly. "You're late." They dismounted, scanning the ashes. One kicked a charred plank, whistled low. "What happened?" "Justice," I said. "In its ugliest form." The older marshal studied Mara. "You the woman from Abilene?" She hesitated. "I was," he nodded, tipping his hat. "Word came down last month. The marshal you were accused of killing? Turns out the men chasing you were his murderers. We've been tracking him." He looked toward the smoke. "Guess you saved us the trouble." Mara swayed slightly, like the weight she'd carried for years had just fallen off her shoulders. "So she's free?" I asked. "Free as any of us can be," he said, mounting back up. "You both ought to head east, find new ground. Folks forget quicker out there." When they rode off, the silence left behind felt holy. The girls ran into Mara's arms, laughing for the first time since I'd met them. I turned away because some sounds are too pure for men like me to look straight at. Later, as the sun bled orange across the hills, she came to where I was splitting kindling. "What now?" she asked. I set the axe down. "You were building your home one log at a time," I said. "Maybe I could help finish it." She smiled. "You mean start over?" "Same thing, if the heart's willing." We stood there, watching the smoke curl skyward. 2 broken souls finding a strange peace among the ashes. When the wind shifted, she slipped her hand into mine. I didn't pull away this time. I didn't need to. The rancher who lived alone had opened his door to strangers, and found his way back to the man he was always meant to be. In a world where justice is scarce, sometimes mercy rides with a gun. Like this story and subscribe for the next Wild West tale. And if you want to see how the next battle unfolds, don't miss the next story. Subscribe now.